Hey there, dear Spellweaver community, and welcome back to a new episode of Spellweaver Ranked. Yeah, I just checked the temperature a couple of seconds ago, actually. It's 29 degrees and it's currently 1:37 in the freaking AM, so you would think that by now that it has actually cooled off a little bit. Nope. It's still hotter than a shearer's armpit in my room, so, yeah, that's why, your eyes don't deceive you. This is the giant, even though he's not wearing a headband. But alright, so today, we play, or rather tomorrow, because I will actually record the deck tag now, and then, I go hop into ranked, during the day, so we can actually lose some rank and play against some viable people. Because I don't think at 1:38 in the AM someone is actually online, but we play a deck that I hold dear to my heart. You probably know me as the Vampire Overlord because I just love vampires. That's the first deck I came up with myself, and it was pretty successful in one episode and pretty trash in the other one. And I think I also played it in Conquest once or twice already. Kind of mixed opinions about that. Or mixed results, I should say. But lately, there's one particular deck that I always play in friendlies because it's just so much fun to play. I don't think it'll do that well in ranked, especially if you consider the current meta. But I think it does. It depends on our draws, obviously. But it's not too RNG dependent. But I'm just gonna show you the thing right here. So maybe you have heard about Traplock. The actual deck list here, by the way, I got from Forest Bear Studios, and I haven't seen that like on. I don't know if they came up with this themselves, but I haven't seen the list for this particular deck anywhere before. The only real thing that I ever saw this deck was on a video of Forest Bear Studios, and I loved it. I copied it. I already played it in Spellweaver Ranked previously, before the Trigon nerf. And it was even more powerful back then. So it got a little bit of a dent, but it's still really good to play. And I'm just going to show you what this is. Traplock. So it uses Hermillion, Hand of Justice, Tireless March. We need 2 order aspects for that. And we can pay up to 3 mana, ready that many allied creatures, and restore their full HP. Move to your deploy phase. Usually we don't really need that hero ability, because Traplock is a little bit more different than that, but we get to that when we get to the actual card that is all based off of. We have Steel Nor Innkeeper for the first creature right here. We only have 1 copy of this, just a value card, because, if you run Order, why not run Steel Nor Innkeeper? He's the only creature in the game that can actually stupefy other creatures, which is basically, what is the other term for that? Silence other creatures. I think that's the term that other card games use. When Steel Nor Innkeeper enters the field, also anti-milling. Shuffle up to 5 creature cards from a hero's graveyard into that hero's deck. Also pretty good against soldiers. We can shuffle soldiers back into their deck if we already killed off some, so they can't use it for Soldiers Memorial. And if we pay 1 additional mana, we can stupefy Steel Nor Innkeeper and an enemy creature. The example that I always use, we can use that on a Phoenix. A Phoenix, if he has 3 energy, he rebirths, and obviously he's flying. If we stupefy it, that card gets reset to a vanilla card. That means all the additional effects are gone. Meaning for the Phoenix, he is not flying anymore. He's automatically pulled to the front line, and he can't rebirth itself. So if he dies on the board, he dies for real, basically. So it's a cool card. We have 3 Companion of the Heavens. Good old Lion. 2 aspects for mana, which is pretty costly, but the cool thing about this is that it is flying and Valor +3. So if he hits the board, you can put Might Emblems on up to 3 creatures, including obviously Companion of the Heavens. We have, the Elf Scout. 4 copies of those as well. It's a 1/1 4-speed. Pretty good to play early game, obviously. And then the card that this deck is all based around is the Jungle Death Trap. The Jungle Death Trap is a 4/4 1-speed, and if you look at the aspect and the mana cost, you would say that is fucking ridiculous. How can a 4/4, if you go second, you can go up 1 nature aspect and spark into Jungle Death Trap right away. I mean, it's 1 speed, sure, But a 4/4 on turn 1 basically is pretty insane. Well, here's the trick. When one or more enemy creatures with level 2 or less enter the field, sacrifice Jungle Death Trap and destroy those creatures. So whenever the enemy plays a creature, that's why this deck is a little bit weak against soldiers, because basically basic Alexa can just use hero ability and that would kill off Death Trap. So basically you sacrifice a 1/1 for a 4/4. But yeah, whenever an enemy creature enters the field, you also lose Jungle Death Trap. However, obviously, since it's a 4/4, it's a little bit hard to remove. So if the enemy plays like a ramp deck, Jungle Death Trap is really good, because we can actually use this to swing in for 4 beats, which is pretty insane. Then we have Diogen, Wandering Pilgrim. And by the way, this deck also revolves around replaying this over and over. That's why it's called Traplock, Death Trap, and we lock the enemy out of the game, basically. It's about playing Jungle Death Traps over and over again, and we get to that when we go for the spells. But for now, we also have Diogen in this deck, the Wandering Pilgrim, and I just fucking love this card. You know, I never really played him that much, because I like to stay away from the meta, and now that barely everyone is playing Corruption Control, everyone is playing Rage Rush, so I like playing card decks and cards that no one else really plays or doesn't play that much, and I think Diogen is one of them. And you know, but if you run like an Order, Nature, or one of these aspects deck, it's a good chance that Diogen is actually in there, because he's still a pretty cool card. He was changed from 2 mana to 3 because of the Instill Life trick, but we get to that in a little bit. When Diogen enters the field, return a card with cost 1 or less from a graveyard to your hand, and whenever your level 1 creature cards without Valor... No, your level 1 creature cards without Valor have Valor +1, which means if Diogen is on the board, you can get a card with cost 1 or less from the graveyard, which means if we have an Elf Scout in there, we can get the Elf Scout out. We play him, and then we can put 1 Might Emblem on a creature of our choosing, which is pretty cool. And we have 3 Tren Birchwood Guardians. Basically just a card that provides a good blocker, because usually, of course, when Jungle Death Trap hits the field, the enemy tries to play like cheap creatures, so they can remove the Jungle Death Trap from the field. And Tren Birchwood Guardian is just basically just to get some beats in. He has a cool ability, however. He's unstoppable for 1, which is pretty cool. As a 4/4 1 speed, you know, basically like a Jungle Death Trap, only that it doesn't kill itself when a weaker creature enters the board. But he's 3 mana, 2 aspects. Again, Order, Nature right here. It's a 4/4 1 speed, unstoppable, which is cool. And it has the ability, if we pay 3 mana, we can do this over and over again. Put a Might Emblem on Tren. And obviously, we can use this also if we already decided to attack. So if we have 9 mana, we can use this 3 times. And he's basically a 7/7 unstoppable. And by the way, the Might Emblems don't disappear. They obviously stay, which is pretty cool. Permanent. Spells with mana cost equal to the number... Oh wait, I didn't even know that. Spells with mana cost equal to the number of Might Emblems on Tren can't be played. Oh. Okay, but if you have more, then it doesn't really matter. But that... Okay, I didn't know that. I didn't know that. That is interesting, actually. Good thing that I read that now. I don't know how... probably ever since Tren got added, that was the case all the time. But I really didn't... It's interesting. Okay. We have 2 Trigons. Now, this deck, by the way, and this deck list was prior to the Trigon nerf. Now you obviously have to pay 1 mana in order to use Trigon. Before, of course, it had 4 Trigons, because Trigon was... You didn't have to pay 1 mana to go up the dual shrine. Now you do. It's a little bit weaker. Kind of puts a dent a little bit into the deck. Because usually what you wanted to do is go up 2 Nature Order levels and you're set. Because with 2 Nature Order levels, obviously 2 Order is needed for Hermilion Hero ability. And yeah, if you play this, you know, you can play Diogen and you can play Tren. And basically everything else in here. So with these 2 shrines, you're basically set. But yeah, only 2 of those because it's a little bit weaker now. You can also use it for the buff, but... that's not really what this is all about. So, I said it's all about Jungle Death Trap and how to get this card back in on the field. Because, you know, the problem is, once you play this and the enemy hero, or the enemy gets rid of it, then, well, you can't replay it anymore. But there are certain amount of spells that actually let you get this card back to your hand, from the graveyard to your hand. Or right to the field, as it is with this one, Solemn Prayer. We can choose one. Either put a shield emblem on each priest you control, which would kind of work because Diogen is a priest, but that's pretty much it, and that's not what we use it for. Knights you control get +1/+1 until end of turn. This one isn't this one is a soldier, this one is a beast, so yeah, we have no knights in there. We use it for the third one. Return a creature with mana cost 2 or less from your graveyard right onto the field. 2 mana. Would be a Jungle Death Trap, and we have 3 copies of that in the deck. Holy Radiance, and this is, by the way, why we want to use maybe the 2 Trigons. However, usually what I do is I go 3 aspects. I go up 1 nature, because that's basically everything you need. 1 nature for the Jungle Death Trap, obviously, and then use maybe 1 Trigon, or I just use 2 Order Shrines right away. But we'll see about that when we actually head into the game. Holy Radiance deals 1 damage to each enemy creature, or if we have 2 Order aspects, Holy Radiance becomes a blessing with, at the start of your turn, destroy Holy Radiance and it deals 3 damage to each enemy creature. Awesome board wipe, usually for Order. Arrow Barrage is also something that we can use. Because, you know, the problem is we don't really have creatures on the board sometimes, or for a good amount of time. So if the enemy plays like some high value creatures that we maybe can't, because, you know, you see, the thing with Jungle Death Trap is with level 2 or less, which means if Ramgag gets played, he can't kill the Jungle Death Trap because he only deals 3 damage, but he's a 3 speed, so it doesn't get removed by Jungle Death Trap. However, if of course, if he summons like a Goblin Warrior, Jungle Death Trap is dead because he summoned a creature. But so also the Goblin Warrior is dead, which is pretty cool. If he plays Lord Kappa, Lord Kappa removes this because it's for attack, but it doesn't kill Lord Kappa because he requires 4 levels. And it also doesn't kill a Djinn of Wishes because that's 3 aspects. So yeah, if the enemy plays something like that, that's what we use Arrow Barrage for, to just wipe this creature clean off the board. We can either choose the front line or support line, and the enemy distributes 4 damage among creatures he or she controls on that line. We have 1 Pegasus Regiment, which we can use late game if we, for some reason, like struggle a little bit with the creatures that they play. We can pay up to 6 mana and summon a Pegasus onto the field for each 1 mana paid. And, of course, the cool thing about this is we can put, as you can see right here, we can put Pegasus under an allied non-flying creature. That creature becomes a 2-speed flying creature. Which means, by the way, we can put Tren on a Pegasus. He's on the support line. He's flying. He's a 2-speed, unstoppable, that we can buff up all the time, which is pretty neato, if you ask me. We can also use it, obviously, on Diogen. We can also use it on the Jungle Death Trap, even though we don't really want that, because it will kill 2 creatures on our side and only 1. It would basically kill the Jungle Death Trap and the Pegasus it is on, and 1 enemy creature. So that's not really good value, unless, of course, you run Chalice of Youngs, which is not the case in this deck. Then we have Soul Projection. Sacrifice a creature. The enemy hero distributes X damage among creatures he or she controls, where X is twice the sacrificed creature's attack. Exhaust each creature that was dealt damage this way. Basically, what this means is, if we play Jungle Death Trap and we use Soul Projection on it, it's twice the attack that the creature has, so the enemy would have to distribute 8 damage on his side of the board, and that pretty much clears a board usually. And if it doesn't, we still have Arrow Barrage, obviously, and we still have Holy Radiance. So there is that. Then we have Ray of Righteousness, also just a way to deal with heavy creatures, because, you know, cheap creatures, we don't care. You know, for cheap creatures, we just put Jungle Death Traps on the board and then let the game go that way, because they remove the small creatures, basically. And Ray of Righteousness and also Soul Projection basically deals with the high value creatures. Destroy an enemy spell or destroy an enemy creature with 3 attack or more. Obviously also gets rid of Tombs of the Damned, for instance, if you happen to run into zombies. Instill Life. Now that is the one card that definitely is freaking awesome. Up until now, you saw we only need 1. Basically, let's just assume we use 2 Trigons, so we only need 2 aspects. Also, if we don't use Trigon, we need 1 Order and 1 Wisdom. Nature. Usually, I would say 2 Order and 1 Nature, however, because of her Million ability. This one is also the only one, by the way, that actually requires you to go up for 3 aspects, but this is definitely needed. Instill Life. Return up to 2 non-spirit creature cards with mana cost 2 or less from your graveyard onto the field. 2 creatures with mana cost 2 or less, non-spirits. It's a plant, it's 2 mana, and we can get 2 Jungle Death Traps from the graveyard onto the field. Solemn Prayer lets us get 1 out of the graveyard. You get the idea. We just that's the whole that's where we want this game to go. Basically, we want to get maybe 2 Jungle Death Traps on the board, and then, you know, reoccur them all the time with Instill Life, with Solemn Prayer, so the enemy has to use up mana in order to remove our Jungle Death Traps, and then, you know, when we ramped up a little bit, we can still use Jungle Death Traps, and we can use, of course, you know, like Ray of Righteousness, we can use Arrow Barrage, Holy Radiance, to deal with their high value creatures, and in the meantime, we can also play Diogen, buff him up a little bit with Elf Scouts that we also can reoccur, obviously, with Instill Life. We can also use Tren, obviously, to get him going a little bit. But of course, the problem is, what if you don't actually draw Jungle Death Traps? That's what we have Call of Jalaya for. Search your deck for a nature creature card with mana cost 2 or less and put it into your hand. Shuffle Call of Jalaya into your deck. We have 4 copies of these because, for some reason, for me also, it's really rare to come across this card. Cool thing about this is you can play this on turn 1. So if you don't have a Jungle Death Trap in your first hand, you can just use Call of Jalaya. And the cool thing is, it just gets shuffled back into your deck, so it doesn't land on the graveyard. And then for shrines, we have 8 nature shrines, 7 order shrines, 2 Valley of the Ancients, 4, by the way. Obviously, it was these amounts of shrines, and then 4 Trigons. However, I subtracted 2, because obviously Trigon is a little bit weaker now, but we can still use it for 1 aspect, I would say, for 1 order nature. Then we go up manually for 1 order and 1 nature, simply just because of Instill Life, but you definitely want to make sure that you have 2 nature, that you go for 2 order, definitely, because that's what we need for hero ability, even though I don't think I've ever really used Tireless March, by the way. But, you know, the thing is, if we have 2 Jungle Death Traps out and the enemy somehow couldn't deal with it, we could basically swing in for 8 damage, use Tireless March, and swing in again for 8 damage, and that would be 16 damage in 1 turn, which is pretty insane if you ask me. But, you know, usually it doesn't come down to this. I had one instance where the enemy actually resigned because I think he played Berg, like Rage Rush or something. And I really just drew the right cards. Like, I played 2 Jungle Death Traps, he removed them. Used Solemn Prayer, removed the next creature, used Instill Life, and then he got rid of both of those. Next turn, again, Instill Life. It's just a blast. This deck is just trolling to the max. And I think, by the way, the first time I played it on Spellweaver Ranked, it also fared quite well. I'm not sure now, after the Trigon nerf, how good this deck is gonna fare, but it's basically not about this. This deck is just purely about having fun, and I think we can get a blast out of this. It's obviously not the best deck in the world, but, you know, it's fun. And that's, you know, that's what we're here for, basically. So now, we are currently ranked 134, which is actually pretty insane. So, we probably won't get too much wins with this. Simply because of the fact, as I've stated, because this deck is not... I don't know how good it fares in the current meta. Probably not that well. But yeah, it's not about that. It's just about... having a good old time. And I think this deck does a pretty good job at that. So, with that being said... That was the deck tech, and yeah, let's see how this goes in game number 1. Alright, game number 1 against Andriola. We definitely know this guy. This is a kind of good hand. We just have to draw a nature shrine, and we're definitely good. So that's Whitix, Yidix, Kamsian, so that could be pretty good. That could be Purple Priests, of course, which shouldn't be that big of a problem. So let's see how this goes. At least it shouldn't be that big of a problem for the deck that we run, at least. There's the first kill for our jungle death trap. Let's just place another one, shall we? And the deck is going. Even though, by the way, now for mana, I would say we just use the nature shrines because we definitely don't want to go up another nature level. So I think that would actually be the best decision. And if he spawns something off of the cloning vat, by the way, does that count as... I mean, basic Alexa ability counts for summoning counts for playing a creature, so I think it does. Well, sure. Swinging in for like 4 beats. It's not too shabby. Could take a little while, obviously, against YTX KDX Comsion, though, of course. Triple kill. Genocide. So we have Instill Life, and we have 2 death traps in the thing, which is pretty good. And I think I'm gonna keep it at, and I'm gonna keep them in. Don't really want to shuffle anything back here. Maybe I'll... Nah, not the Elf Skull. I can get that back with Diogen, actually. So, just playing this for nothing. And then see where it goes. He also used good old Rune of Blades. So, there's nothing to worry about in that instance, at least. And yeah, next turn, Order level, Instill Life, 2 Death Traps. Let's do it. We're slightly ahead in cards, however. We can also go for Arrow Barrage, maybe even Companion. Could be a thing. Don't really want to use Companion, however, on Jungle Death Traps, obviously. Could Stupefy him, but that would actually be beneficial for him. Do I lock him down entirely? Might as well lock him down, actually. Even though we have to take into consideration that he has Rune of Blades and he can actually get rid of 2... If he uses that with Shadow Step, which he probably has 2 more, then he could actually kill 3 creatures. So basically, like, it kills his creature, obviously, thanks to Jungle Death Trap, but he can also kill both Death Traps in the process. And I don't know if I actually would want that, so I think I'm gonna instill. Getting him back, going in for 2 beats. That's how the cookie crumbles. And since he only has a slave out, by the way, he has a good amount of mana, however, but since he only has a slave out, that's gonna be interesting to see if he can actually... And only 1 aspect, so there's no Lord Kappa coming in anytime soon. It could be funny. So okay, that counts like playing a creature, obviously, since basic Alexa ability does. As well. That's the power lost card. Ah, God, I love this. This is awesome. And he's somehow he still has 7 cards in hand. I don't know how the hell he does that. That kind of sucks. But I mean, I just go for Holy Radiance, I think. Yeah, because Arrow Barrage doesn't clear. Play on, play that. Kinda okay. Yeah, well, as I've stated, by the way, I don't just expect us to win anything here. It's just purely for fun. But, you know, might as well jump into rank, because, you know, why not? Why the hell not? So he also has Vampiric Touch, Book of Shadows. He can actually use that twice, and it's probably gonna be the 4/4 dust thing. I don't know how the hell it is called, but I don't know, we can clear both, but we can clear 1. Would need 6 mana in order to clear both. Okay. Oh yeah, that's how he maintains cards, of course. With that shit. Thunderstorm Titan. Don't really like that. Get rid of it. Goodbye. Jungle Death Trap. Here we meet again. Let's get that cloning vat trigger away. Or that. Oh yeah, that's another one of these, but of course, it's gonna be Ray of Righteousness again. Only problem that we have, of course, as you can see, is obviously card draw. That it's a slight problem. But we'll see. Call of July. I think we have one more Death Trap actually in there. Yep. Let's play it back here. Oh, we can actually play it in front. I mean, well, he can still remain the Powerlust Incarnate. But let's see if he actually uses the Cloning Vat. He might. So he still has the 4/4 on board. Would make more sense. Maybe even... No, wait, I was about to... Okay, that, and then maybe the... Whatchamacallit? Or not. The Moonsteel Miner, I was about to say. Just buffing up your creature. I mean, he has 5 mana left, why wouldn't you? Or just use it afterwards, alright. Yeah, I don't really need that. Kinda sucks. Let's see. 6 mana. Let's get the card draw. Dialga. Gets us back an Elf Scout. Let's go for these two beautiful fellows first, however. Then go for Dialga. Getting that. Backline. Goes in for a 10 damage. Or 9 damage if he decides to use this for the buff. Yeah, that's the first loss, but as I've stated, it's not about winning. It's all about the fun of this deck, and it kind of worked. We kind of locked him down out of the early game, which was pretty awesome. So that's technically a win for this deck. Let's see what else we can do. Let's see what else we can draw, actually. Shrine into Shrine. Yeah, that doesn't do jack shit. Playing that, and Resign. So first loss, well, you know, it's alright. We still managed to do something. -9 rating only, so it's nothing. And let's see how it goes in game number 2.